And we are live. Welcome, everybody. This is Stefan Molyneux from Free Domain. I am very, very pleased to have Dr. Shiva Aradurai, and he is an MIT PhD and more acronyms than an alphabet soup in a windstorm. And he has, of course, 4 PhDs, if I remember rightly. He also invented email. He's actually
literally seeing the burning down of their industry. So pharma companies are now moving to a different area: vaccines and what are called cell therapies. These do not need to go through the same regulatory framework. In fact, they're treated as another class called biologic process. Starting in 1962, John Kennedy signed the National Vaccine Act. And that was based on a very, very rudimentary understanding of the immune system, which is what's still used today by guys like Fauci and Gates to put forward it. You know, it's very different than the understanding of the immune system that I've put forward. And in fact, I gave the prestige lecture at the National Science Foundation on this. They didn't invite Fauci or Gates to give that lecture. They invited me because of the knowledge I have around that. So when you come back to now the big pharma, the big academia, and the big hospital establishment, that triumvirate, you know, centered and founded by something very, very powerful, 3 foundations, 2 at least, and 1 more recently, the Gates Foundation and the Clinton Global Initiative, both together with the WHO, CDC, UNICEF, all these other people we didn't ever elect, okay? Together, the Gates Foundation created what's called Gavi, Vaccine Alliance. And if you look at their consortium, it's vaccine manufacturers, UNICEF, World Bank, and they funded that to about $1 billion. And so the Clinton Global Initiative and the Gates Foundation are sort of the 2 doppelgangers, sort of the twins in this, are part of this with a whole consortium. And the goal is they're really the frontsmen for big pharma. They're the frontsmen pushing, and when you actually work out the numbers, they're basically carving out the different vaccines, and they have the pharma consortium behind them. Pharma is crashing. They're saying, wow, I create a drug, I only have 200,000, 1 million people who have cardiac disease, whatever, or 300 million. Imagine if I could create a product that everyone had to take, right? That's like the biggest business opportunity, right? An audience, a market of 7.2 billion people, let's say on average, spending about $1,000 a year, that's a $7.2 trillion recurring market. Now, imagine this: if you could get the government its public so afraid that they impose this as a mandate. Now you've created a consortium. So Gavi is leading this consortium with 2 of its cylinders, Gates Foundation, Clinton Global Initiative, which are probably being funded in all sorts of, many incestuous ways. Back-ending that is a major big pharma companies who are part of Gavi. They're the consortium partners. In fact, the SDG 3 goals is supported not just by the WHO and United Nations, but the IFPMA, the International Federation of Pharmaceutical Manufacturers. The 3 leadership council of that is Eli Lilly, Shionogi from Japan, and Roche. All right, so imagine, to your point, every year you have a new need for a new vaccine, new variations, new mutations. Now you have 7.2 billion people. Again, I use that $1,000 number. It could be 2,000, it could be 100. My point I'm making is you have a beautiful recurring revenue model. And in order to get that recurring revenue business, what do you need? You need an amazing marketing campaign, a global marketing campaign. And that's what we're right in the middle of now. Okay, do you want the economies to be crashed again? Do you want everyone to be in their homes? Look, let's just put everyone gets a vaccine card. You don't want your neighbor screwing up the economy, do you? Do you want Bob screwing it up?
Do you want to have a driver's license? It's a nice economy you got there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it and you weren't allowed to drive.
Exactly. Or you weren't allowed to take your kid to daycare, or you weren't allowed out of your home, or you couldn't go to your gym, or you couldn't visit your parents in another country. So that is what the goal is. It's a 7.2 billion person market opportunity worth, upwards of $10 trillion year over year. So from their standpoint, everyone says, well, why would they do this to the economy? Well, it's a return on investment. You put enough fear, you crash the economies just enough. By the way, they get a double whammy because the Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese involved, they have a lot of, dollar reserves. You crash the economy, you buy things on a song now, so you're going to make your return anyway, because as you kick this back up, you're going to make money on that, and you're going to also get indentured servants, because many of the large Chinese financial houses actually are the ones who funded banks like lenders like Wells Fargo. So when the U.S. working class crashes or the world working class, well, now they're going to also get a rental revenue. They'll get two sets of revenue. They'll get revenue from recurring on rent because people won't be able to afford their homes. And they're going to also get the bloodstream revenue. Well thought out business model. And that's why Gates funded hundreds of millions of dollars to McKinsey to do all of this. So those people listening out there, you need to understand these people are very sophisticated, highly organized, very adept. Accidental that we saw all this dissension taking place globally. In Hong Kong, millions of people protesting. In Wuhan, anti-pollution protests, not anti-CO2, pollution protests. You know, in France, Venezuela, India, a populist leader gets reelected. The United States, Trump. In the midst of all this anti-establishment commotion is when we impose this thing called a quote-unquote a pandemic. So all of this is beautifully well orchestrated, but I just want people to think about this. Forget conspiracy for a second. By the way, it's not there is a deep state, but just think about it from a marketing campaign over here with a product development strategy over here. That's what this is. Gates, McKinsey is the architect, and the Clintons, and they're probably getting paid off enormously on the back end. Remember, these foundations are enormous business operations where they literally steal money out of the public coffers, and they make us look, they want us to make, oh, isn't Bill Gates and Warren Buffett such nice people? They're giving away their money. They're not giving away their money. They're taking it out of taxes, and they're putting it in a foundation where they only have to give 5% of the assets away. They get to keep the other 95%. And then on top of it, they like to act, they make us think they're the saviors of the world. So they get triple whammies out of this. They get to keep their money, they get to look good, and then they get to control public policy. That's what's going on. Forget even foods, I mean, I can talk about supplements. Let's talk about something even more powerful. You know what that is? Social interaction. Social isolation would lead to detriment worse than high blood pressure, worse than obesity, and worse than even smoking. You might as well start smoking. Okay. Stephen Cold with humans and macaw monkeys, socially isolating them. At the gene expression level, it's shown that your body will upregulate genes which are inflammatory, and downregulate, which means suppress genes which cause antiviral activity. So think about that. So social isolation leads to viral infection and cancer and a number of other diseases. And I'm sorry by that. We have to fight for freedom. You talked about censorship. Without open discourse and debate, without the ability to have, disagreements openly, we will never practice the scientific method. We will get into scientific consensus. That's sort of fascism, right? That leads to fiction, not truth. So scientific consensus leads to fiction. Scientific method leads to truth. So we need freedom to get to truth. So when you look at a guy like Fauci, he's practicing everything which is anti-human, anti-medicine. Number one, he's practicing exclusivity. A small cult of people are going to decide. Second thing, he's practicing centralization of authority. A few set of people. Opacity. How are all these decisions being made? The other piece of it is it's all about depersonalization, treating everyone like a lump. And based on that is why we're all locked up. Total nonsense. And all of this is based on the imposition of fake science by Fauci. And he knows what he's doing. And I think the key is I'm willing to, let's talk the science. Let's talk molecular systems. Let's talk infectious disease openly in a round table. If Gates wants to show up, who has no knowledge of this, if Hillary Clinton wants to show up and if Fauci wants to show up, and they can bring all the scientists they want. I'll take them all on. But the bottom line is that they are actively created this fear mongering on a fake science model, on the ignorance of people's understanding of the immune system.